Hello, and welcome to a new Let's Play or Let's Watch or whatever from the Super Nerd channel. As far as I know, most people who follow me are. I can only guarantee that they've played Pokemon. I'm not sure what other games they've played. I talked about this a little bit uh, in the part I just uploaded today, which was, I think, part 18 of my Pokemon Red Randomized Nuzlocke. This was the other RPG that I played when I was a kid. Probably played it right after Pokemon and played it almost as much as I played, maybe Pokemon Red and Pokemon Gold. Um, it's called Shining Force. It's the best way to describe it is it's exactly like Fire Emblem, but it's a lot easier because when your characters die, they're not permadead. You can bring them back by paying gold. Um, and I played the shit out of this game on the computer. I didn't have a Genesis, but I did have a computer game compilation of Genesis games, and Shining Force was one of them. And I continue to be a fan of Shining Force. It's probably the most kind of hipstery thing I'm a fan of because I don't think Shining Force was very popular. It certainly didn't really have many sequels or anything. Um, there was a direct sequel called Shining Force 2. Well, I said direct sequel. It was called Shining Force 2, but it doesn't really follow up on anything in this game at all. It's just kind of like a Final Fantasy sequel would be the best way to describe it. It's a new continent, similar battle system and everything, similar core concept, but it's not really a direct sequel in terms of the story. And I got that when it came out on Steam, probably 6 or 7 years ago. They remade this game, the Shining Force that I'm playing right now, as a Game Boy Advance game, which I bought probably 10 years ago, and that could be worth playing. I have that on my computer as well. Um, it was not any more difficult, although it did add a mode where it became more difficult as you continued to level up. As you continue to beat the game, you could restart a new game plus that was slightly more difficult. And if you did that enough times, it would get actually difficult. Unfortunately, my save file doesn't really have anything that's close to difficult. Now, we'll start the game here. Um, as you probably saw, I can't remember if your name is in all caps or not. I'm gonna have to. I think it is. One of those old game things. We'll restart if not. So as you could see from the scroll while I was talking, this is a pretty standard fantasy game. There was a great evil sealed away by the light, and now evil is back. Oh no. It's pretty generic fantasy in a lot of respects. So this game, I'm not sure to what extent Fire Emblem has walking around the town sections, but this game certainly does. Uh, you can use magic, even though you can't actually use it in the town. You can talk to people and you can search things. Pretty simple. So this guy is blocking our way. We can use search on the bookcase as an example of search. Read the books in the bookcase. Oh no, the names are not. Are they? Shit. Alright, we're gonna reset. This time we're gonna continue and check whether the names are correct. I have an old file so I can see. Alright. So, anyway. While I'm working on this, what's different about this particular version of the game that I'm playing is, obviously it's so old that it's got a great modding community. Um, and someone has modded the entire game to be much more difficult than it should be. Um, it's an actual challenge, and I honestly have not beaten this version of the game because the last fight is very, very hard. And, you know, I die a lot, which is not the case in the original game. In the original game, barely anything happened that was much of a challenge or unexpected. So we're going to go through this whole thing again. It looks like we got one more hit point than we started last time. Your stats are slightly variable. You're always going to basically level up in the exact same way, but they can be slightly variable, so let's pretend I did that on purpose. Yes, anyway, so I'll see if I can put a link in the video description. It's called the Shining Force Challenge mod or something. I got it from the Shining Force Central forums. Yes, I've been having nightmares too. So that community has a lot of modding. This mod, it can't do a whole lot to improve the AI. The guy did the best he could. You know, ultimately the AI is just not very good, but he did make everything a lot more difficult. The enemies have a lot better stats. You have a lot worse stats. So that's our mentor's daughter. There are centaurs in this. All the knights are centaurs. Can't just push our way into the treasure room in the castle, unfortunately. Yeah, so enemies are much harder. Your party has been reduced in power to make it more of a challenge, because a lot of your party members could become completely overpowered, including the dragon. And we do get a dragon party member, and he is awesome. But he is slightly less overpowered in this one. It also makes it so that you can mostly use any party you want, which was not something that happened in the original game. Well, you could use any party you want, especially if you wanted an additional challenge, but there were certain characters who were much better than everyone else. And the challenge mod has kind of gotten rid of that, so you have more variety in your party usage, or you can just use characters you think are cool. So they're telling us to go investigate the Gate of the Ancients. The Ancients are the people who sealed the Dark Dragon away in that prologue, and that guy doesn't like us. Yeah, I have to go back to town. You'd think that you go around searching for people to join your cause, but in fact they just kind of walk up and say, hey, we're joining your cause. And you're like, cool. I don't use anyone but Luke the warrior from this initial group of people that you get. The rest are all classes that are replaced by a better version of their own class later on. And Luke is a warrior, and you only get 2 warriors in the entire game, and you get both of them in Chapter 1. So it's a little strange, the distribution on that one. Shining Force 2 is a little better about that. Yeah, money. Oh, this guy's dialogue has some interesting continuity error. We have not been called the Shining Force yet. We're just like random band of people. But obviously we will be. So one of the parts of this game is you can go in and talk to your troops, but it's not very developed in this version of the game. They say like one thing. In the remake, they improved this aspect. Everyone had an entire story, and if you brought them into battle, they would tell you a part of their story. And then, of course, if you keep them in your game keep them in your party the entire game, you would have the end of their story by the end. Yeah, this is a pussy. Some of them have good stories. If I recall, Lau just talks about things that he wants to eat because he's hungry, but some of them, you know, will give you their entire backstory, that sort of thing, which I think is a little more standard for this type of game. This guy's whining about being a merchant, and the reason he's whining about being a merchant is they're not going to sell us weapons yet, because all the weapons would be upgrades of what we have. Let's listen to this dude's story. So obviously he's going to be the second warrior that we recruit to our party. Game is pretty easy to tell who's going to be important because they have a portrait, and if they don't have a portrait, they're not important. Very basic. Of course, with the assets they were working with, I don't blame them. Goblins. Oh no. They had a child-friendly swearing right there. Blast it. You know, he's just trying to say fuck it. So, we'll check out the stats. As you can see, you know, Luke's got the attack and the physical defense, whereas a mage, you know, they've got the ability to use magic, but not much in the way of defense. Healers are obviously going to heal the rest of the party. Knights have the most movement. Movement is how many spaces you can move on the battlefield. Archers have poor movement, but they can attack from 2 squares. The advantage of knights is they can equip weapons that allow them to attack from 2 squares as well. Now, I'm not going to do this fight in this part, and there's a very good reason for that. If I try and do this part, I'm going to get my ass kicked because the difficulty curve was quite spiked. We'll check out the goblin stats. They've got an 11 attack and 7 defense. You know, that's enough to, like, almost one-shot any of us. So we're going to have to be very careful about how we grind up, of course, and raise our stats. I'm going to hopefully level up the main character in this part before I cut it to grind, so you can just get a little bit of exposure to how this works. So combat, obviously you run over, you click on them, you attack. You inflict damage and you get experience points based on how much damage you inflicted and their level compared to yours. Pretty basic. There's the ability to attack twice and the ability to inflict a critical hit, though those are both comparatively uncommon. Otherwise, it just runs on the stats. As you can see, I do 6 to him, he does 4 to me. This is a good calculus, and we should be able to level up our main hero pretty well. I'm definitely going to grind to about level 4 or 5 on everyone, just to account for the difficulty curve. And it'll improve the, it'll keep the earlier parts of the game from being too overwhelming, but trust me, you just have to level up. The guy, you know, made it with that in mind, I think. In the original game, you could probably power through and, like, never grind. But what's the fun in that? I would always grind anyway, and that's part of the reason it was so easy, you know? But what's the point of an RPG if you don't backtrack and grind? You'll notice I am playing the music for this game. I don't think I could find the, I really don't think I can find the music for this game on YouTube in 10-hour loops to play like I am in Pokemon. So I'm just gonna let the game music happen. I cannot overstate how obscure this game is. Sometimes I talk to people about it and no one's ever heard of it. And you're missing out if so. Anyway, the Shining Force series in general, after Shining Force 2, there was a Shining Force 3, but I have no idea about where to get that. And then after that, there have been a couple games, like maybe every 2 generations you'll get a new Shining Force game, I think. But I've never heard anything about them in particular, you know, no hype, no indication of whether they're good or not. That guy did a lot of damage to us, shit. If your main character dies, the battle is over. Everyone else can die and you can continue the battle. Fuck. Alright, let's just hope he doesn't crit. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so if Nerd here dies, it's over. I'm gonna put myself on this bubble. If I have a land effect on me, I'll get a little more defense, which will hopefully keep me from dying because I've only got 1 heal left on Lao. I really don't want to backtrack at this point. Alright, we can pop that heal off. We should be good to finish the goblin, hopefully. Because Lao got more experience because he healed us from the brink of death. That's part of the way that healing experience is factored in. It is hard, of course, to level up the healer because they can't do much damage to the enemies, so you pretty much have to rely on them healing your wounds. So that's why I'm leveling both Nerd here and Lao at the same time. Yeah, I was toying doing a kind of Nuzlocke concept where if my guys die, it's over. But as you can see, that would be a little tough. Alright. Oh, I really hope that... I'm gonna have to use the medical herb that Lau has, which is a healing item. Hopefully he gets a turn before the goblin. Alright, here we go. So I'm gonna have to go buy more of these. I didn't plan to do that. In the original game, you would use an item and you wouldn't get any experience at all. That was something that was fixed in the remake and is also fixed in this mod, I believe. Well, I know it's fixed in the mod because it just happened. I believe in the original game that wouldn't have happened. Fuck this goblin, man. Holy fuck. I better get another turn. As you can see, if I tried to power through this right now without grinding, it would be no good. Alright, so we killed that fucker finally. Got a level up. Our attack increased, defense increased, speed increased. You have to level up to raise your stats. It'll probably be incremental at the start of the game for sure. So now we can check out our improved stats. Incremental at the start of the game. There's a maximum level of 20, and then you can promote. After 20, you stop gaining experience altogether, and you have to promote to the second version of the class. When you promote, you get like a... You lose like 25% of all your stats if you promote. But as a consequence, when you level up that second class up to 20, your stats will be much higher by the end of leveling up the promoted class. And there is no cap once you're promoted. I think you can level all the way up to like, well, there is a cap, but it's like level 99. You promote here at the Priest, which is the same place you save the game, and cure people of status effects. So that's going to be it for the first part. I've got a lot of grinding to do before we get up to a level where we can competitively take on that fight. What I'm going to do is start it up again at the fight, complete the fight, and that'll be the whole next part, I think, is how I'll do it. I'll just keep the grinding off screen as much as I possibly can, just for you guys' enjoyment. Trust me, it's going to be the longest part of doing this whole thing, is going to be grinding everyone up to the appropriate level. So, hope you enjoy this. Hope I'm showing off a cool game that no one's ever heard of, and I'll see you guys next time.